So again, for the implementing rules and regulation, Quarantine Act of 2004, which is pursuant to Republic Act 9271. This is the Administrative Order Number Series of 2005. So under the Part 11, these are the measures of the public health emergencies of the human international concern. Under the Part 12, these are the management protocol for the disease that was subject to the international health regulations. Under the Part 13, these are the medical clearance of foreigners for immigration of purposes, and under the Part 14 are the utilization of income. So the Part 11, this is the measures in public health emergencies of international concern, or the PHEIC. Under this Section 53 is the preparedness and response guidelines. The Bureau of Quarantine shall institute rules and regulations that govern the measure for the control of the introduction and spread of public health. The Secretary of Health is authorized to mobilize other government agencies for the purpose for preventing the introduction, transmission, and spread of the public health emergencies of international concerns. In the event of an outbreak, a public health emergency is concerned in the community. This is the following measures for the prevention of the transmission and spread of such public health emergency with the coordination with the Department of Health agencies. So the Part 12, this is the management protocol for the disease subject to the international health and regulation. Under the Section 54, this is the cholera, a cholera-infected ship or aircraft. A ship or an aircraft shall be regarded as infected if during the voyage a case of cholera has been occurred. The unloading of contaminated matters and waste shall be accorded with the anti-pollution law under the supervision of the Bureau of Quarantine, and those person who is engaged in the unloading of such contaminated material shall be subject to surveillance for a period not exceeding for 5 days from the time they are case unloading. Subject to surveillance for the period not exceeding 5 days from the time they cease unloading. Those patients shall be disembarked, isolated, and treated. The cases manifesting the clinical symptoms of the disease in which no cholera vibrio organism has been found, or in which virus found are not characteristic of cholera or vibrio, they shall be considered as actual patients and treated as such. Vaccination with oral vaccine to travelers when requested, and the baggage of any infected person or the suspect, and any other article is which considered contaminated and shall be disinfected. The Section 55 is the plug. This is the plug infected or suspected ship or aircraft. The management plague infected person or suspect should, if the asymptomatic suspect, will be placed in quarantine or placed under the surveillance in the period of 6 days from the date of exposure. The patients with plague shall be disembarked, isolated, and treated. If the ship on the arrival shall be regarded as suspected, if it has no case of human plague on board but there is an abnormal death among rodents on board with a known cause, a ship or an aircraft shall be subject to fumigation under any of the following: if they have with human or rodent plague on board, if with moderate or heavy rodent infestation coming from the plague infected area. Under the Section 56 is the yellow fever. This is the yellow fever infected or subject ship or aircraft. Any person arriving from a yellow fever infected area without a valid certificate of vaccination against the disease shall be placed in quarantine for a period of not more than 6 days reckoned from the last possible exposure or departure from the affected area. They have to manage of the yellow fever infected person or suspect. The vessel or aircraft shall be disinfected against mosquitoes before this discharge of cargo. The discharge of cargo shall be under the supervision of the quarantine of medical officer and may be carried out by vaccinated person. If the unvaccinated person are employed, they shall be kept under the surveillance for 6 days, reckoned from the last day of exposure in the board. Under the Part 13, this is entitled the medical clearance of foreigners for immigration purposes. The Section 57, as the medical arm of Bureau of Immigration, is mandated to conduct physical and medical examination of foreigners or aliens seeking the residency in the country, as this is a prerequisite to the issuance of their corresponding visa by the Bureau of Immigration. There are some classification of the text and disease of foreigners which are subject to administrative disposition by the Bureau of Immigration. We have the Class A, the Class B, and the Class C. Only those regular quarantine medical officer can issue the medical clearance of the foreigners or the aliens, and there are some requirements for the foreigner. It is first they have to submit the chest x-ray, the serology, stool examination, the urine examination, and other examination when necessary to make sure that the medical examination for immigration purposes is been clear. So the Part 14, this is the utilization of income. Under the Section 58, it is written in the Section 9 the authority to utilize income. The Bureau of the Quarantine shall be authorized to use at least 50% of the income that was generated and subject to the accounting and auditing rules and regulations. However, no amount in the said trust fund shall be used for the payment of salaries and other allowance and benefits in cash or in kind. If such income as enumerated below shall be referred as the quarantine income, in this section they shall be constituted as trust fund and shall be deposited in any authorized government depository bank, this is the such income, the vaccination fees, the laboratory fees, the durating fees, the service fees, and the fines and penalties. The Bureau of the Quarantine shall submit to the Department of Budget and Management. They have to copy furnish of the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Health, a quarterly report of estimated income collection and utilization as indicated in the Annex 1. They have to certified by the Bureau of Budget Officer and Accountant. And the utilization of the income shall be approved by the Director of the Quarantine upon the recommendation of the Management Committee. The Bureau of the form of a resolution, the copy furnished of the Office of the Department of Health and the Department of Budget of the Management. And also, the Bureau of the Quarantine shall maintain the separate books of the account to make cover to receipt and utilization of all income collected pursuant to the usual budgeting, accounting, and auditing rules and regulations.